Well, good evening and welcome to the book launch for Scott Overton's The Dispossession of Dylan Knox. My name is Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and I am happy and honored to have my good friend Scott Overton in the virtual Northern Lights studio with me. Hey, Scott, welcome.
There it is. Well, thank you very much for doing this, for hosting this for me. I appreciate your time, Mark. Always good to talk to you.
I only wish we were standing in front of a bookstore together so that I could get a signed copy of this book.
I know, and it's so nice to meet people and be able to actually do that and autograph the book for them, and it means a lot to them that way. Second virtual launch for me. My last one was Naida, and what do you do? It's COVID, right? So
What are we going to do? So we're going to roll. We're going to go with the show. We're going to roll with the
yeah,
Northern Lights here.
yeah.
So tell me about the dispossession of Dylan Knox. Now you've been on the media tour, as I heard you were on CTV, Mid Northern Ontario CTV, the Sudbury channel. You were on this evening, I think, right?
Yeah, apparently so, and I haven't seen it yet, but I'm going to check that out for sure. Yeah, Tony Rima is really, really nice. A nice guy, very supportive of local authors. You've been on their show before too, I know, and
Yeah,
it's great.
awesome.
So yeah, The Dispossession of Dylan Knox is my new science fiction thriller romance novel. I don't want to call it a romance as such because, as we know, there are tropes that romance readers really expect. Certain points, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. But this one does have a very strong love story, a stronger love story, I think, and romantic element than any of my novels previous to this one. So that's kind of good because Valentine's coming up.
Oh
And
yeah.
the theme of this one, what we call the log line, would be, who do we really fall in love with? Is it the person we see, or is it who they are inside? And that's a universal question that's been around since the dawn of time, right?
So wait a second, Scott. I gotta say this. You're a science fiction writer, but
Yeah.
this sounds like a novel that this is kind of a universal thing. This love thing you speak of.
Well, so it is. And I mean, I want to write science fiction that does talk about universal themes. I don't just like action and whatever, one thing after another. I like a theme to be something important. And then I find a science fiction concept that will address that theme and illustrate the theme in a very human story, which is what the dispossession of Dylan Knox does. It is a love story because Brooke Chappelle, who works as an assistant for the Secretary General of the United Nations, bumps into her old high school flame, Dylan Knox, and he doesn't remember her at all. And he also acts like somebody different. He doesn't act the same. In fact, because she's wondering whether he's an imposter, maybe he means something bad for the Secretary General, or he's in a space energy project. Maybe he's going to sabotage that. She spends time with him and realizes there are different personalities here. This is not the Dylan I knew. And yet she finds herself falling in love. What do you do with this case? Because what she sees is not who's really there.
Oh my God! Wow. So let's take a quick look at the cover. We had it up at the beginning, but I'm just going to pop that up again. So this is
Yeah.
obviously, yeah. There's obviously there's some multiple people in Dylan Knox
And
apparently, or
no
something.
actual face to Dylan Knox there, but you can sort of see Brooke in the middle, forlorn and lost. So I think that's a great representation of the book. And the name is like a play on the idea of possession, where we think of someone being possessed by evil spirits or whatever, and taking control of
Right.
them, and dispossession, where they're completely removed, evicted, if you like, from their place, from where they belong. So I thought that was a good title for it.
What was there a particular genesis for this novel that you were thinking about something, or you witnessed something, or you heard something, and you went, "Aha! What if?"
If there was, I really don't remember what that particular thing was. And I haven't, revealed what the conceit and concept of the story is as far as where those personalities come from. I think we'll keep that a bit of a secret and people can read that. But I want them to put themselves in Brooke's place and think, what do you do when something like this happens? You've got that person that was so big and important in your life. Now, suddenly they're not that person. You have
Right.
feelings for them, but what if they're a threat to your country? What are their if they're a threat to everybody around them?
Oh,
And
that's
what's
right,
your
because of her
responsibility?
role, right? The role that she plays. Oh, okay. So this you're going to get into some international intrigue as well, I'm guessing.
There is international intrigue. There is some space science in it. There's not a lot of technology in it. Science fiction, some people say I don't like science fiction because they haven't really read the kind of things that I write, I believe, and some of the
Right.
ones that I like to read the most. They probably have this concept of science fiction that has to do with television sci-fi and movie sci-fi, which often is monsters in space or space battles with, swooping spaceships making noises as they do that, and laser blasts and who knows what, which, is fun. But science fiction is a literature that, addresses issues. It reflects the issues of our society. It just happens to use a slightly more out there concept, perhaps, to make those illustrations.
Cool. That is awesome. Thank you. I'm just going to pop up a comment from one of the live viewers. So, Colleen says, "I love the cover."
Oh, thank you, Colleen. And Colleen gave a great review just a week ago to my last novel, Naida, on
Oh,
Goodreads and such. And I appreciate that, Colleen. Thanks. I'm glad you
oh,
like
and thank you, Colleen, because you know what? Reviews, and even if you only have one sentence, and it may only take a few minutes, but reviews mean so much more to an author. Now, when I worked at Kobo, we did a study, and it showed that a book with no reviews versus a book, even with a 1-star review, believe it or not, was twice as likely to sell just for
it.
having a review because it meant somebody read it.
Yeah, it's sort of what people say. It's giving you social permission to read this book because somebody else has read it and said, you should read it, or maybe not. But
Yeah.
everybody has different tastes. And I tell people, please do leave a review. Make it an honest review. If you don't like the book, okay, say that, because some people are not going to like it. You can't please everybody. And every one of my books is different too. They are not the same thing one after another. So you may love one and think the next one, I don't get that one. I don't understand it. I hope you'll love them all.
Well, I mean, I've been reading your novels since the very first one came out, Dead Air, which was a thriller set in Sudbury, Ontario,
Yep.
and it was just a really great, an amazing novel. So I knew that whatever Scott writes, I'm just going to follow him along because I'm sure I'm going to enjoy the story, right? Because I didn't have to know what it was like to be a radio morning DJ in Sudbury in order to read that,
No.
or even to be living on the streets or any of the things that you addressed in that. But that was such a great novel, and then you've moved on to more science fiction stuff, and I've enjoyed every single one of them. But yet I do sense that there has been a theme in your I guess the last three sci-fi novels.
I mean, it's interesting that you picked up on that because I'm very big on consciousness, the mind, the state of the mind versus relationship to the world, its relationship to other people. So, for instance, my first science fiction novel, The Primus Labyrinth, had a guy touring through, he wasn't touring through the bloodstream, but he was traveling through the bloodstream linked to this nano submersible to save a woman's life. And it was virtual reality, but his mind made an incredible link to this thing. So they really felt like he was there and could have died. If he died in that place, he probably would have died in reality. Then
Right.
Naida, my second novel, an alien infiltrates a human being, and the two of them have to live together. They communicate mentally. That's not anything vocal going on there. But how do they communicate? How do they learn to cooperate? And so there is a kind of a consciousness theme, again, with the dispossession of Dylan Knox. There are these personalities in there, these minds within, not what is being shown to the world. And again, there's a strange connection there.
I love that. I love that. And Colleen just popped up another comment I'm going to share. She says, "Scott, you're welcome. It is a great book," and I agree with her. I have not yet read The Dispossession of Dylan Knox because it just came out. I downloaded it to my Kobo. I got it yesterday, and I
Yeah.
am going on a trip to a writing conference, and I cannot wait. When I'm on the plane, all by myself, I'm just going to start digging into this and enjoy it. But you're going to, as I understand, you're gonna treat us with a little sample from the book, aren't you?
Well, I will if you really twist my arm. Oh, oh, sure.
All right, I'm
What
gonna
would
I'm
a
gonna
book
step
launch be without?
backstage, bring you front stage, and you can do your reading.
Okay, and I'll do that. And the thing about the reading that I've chosen to do for it is that this is the very beginning of the book because it sets up the premise. And then a little bit later on, where really the main character, Brooke, becomes invested in finding out what's going on. And you'll hear why. So it begins, and it begins in the month of May in California. At first, Brooke suspected a trick. Within a day, she would wonder if her memory was starting to betray her. A week later, she would doubt her own sanity. And soon, she would come to question the sanity of the very universe itself. Yet it all began so simply. Good Lord, Dylan Knox! I can't believe it! Have we met before? His hand extended awkwardly in midair as her arms reached out for an embrace. She quickly drew them back to her side and tried to cover her discomfort with a laugh. Have we met? Dylan, it's Brooke Chappelle from Larkmont High. I haven't changed that much. His face remained blank. Time lurched, a crystal perfect memory overlaid with a jarring facade of present day that refused to fit. She stared at him. You really don't remember? You went to Larkmont High School, right? Yes. We dated for quite a while. Dylan looked disconcerted, and there was something furtive in his eyes. It wasn't recognition. I'm really sorry, but I honestly don't remember you. It's very nice to see you again, though. I hope our little factory has made an impression. He was trying to change the subject gracefully, and she went along. Yes, absolutely. And the Secretary General is a big fan of space exploration, solar power generation in particular. He'll be thrilled to see all this. I hope you'll be on hand next week because he'll have lots of questions about your project. That's what I'm here for. The restraint in his smile made her blink hard and turn away. As a trace of his scent caught her nostrils, her mind flashed with a memory of lips against lips, a warm palm on her breast, fingers trailing under the back waistband of her Maguire denims. God, he couldn't possibly fail to see her shiver and the flush on her face. How could she end this? Hatfield and Brown were approaching, conspicuous in blue security uniform suits. UN Public Affairs liaison Patrice Grayson was with them. This tour of Draconis Space Ventures was Brooke's first time leading an advance party for an event on the West Coast, and Patrice had graciously offered to assist. Brooke performed introductions, adding, Dylan and I once knew each other. Dylan gave a stiff nod, and Brooke caught a questioning look from Patrice as they all shook hands. He remained scrupulously professional, but carefully detached as he described a few more details about the Draconis operation that their previous guide had glossed over. When the tour finally concluded, Brooke felt both relief and disappointment. She didn't get the chance to explain to Patrice until hours later in the hotel bar over pre-dinner drinks. He didn't remember me at all, Brooke said softly. He wasn't faking it. Was he your first? Patrice asked. No, in fact, we never did have sex all the way. I was sure we would after the prom, but a friend of ours got so pissed we had to take him to the hospital. That kind of killed the mood. She laughed. But it was serious, at least to me. Except after the prom, I guess life just got in the way. My parents took me to visit Mom's family in New Orleans for the summer, and Dylan's English father helped get him into aerospace engineering at Cambridge. That was pretty much it. We emailed and Skyped for a while, but by the time work brought him back to the States years later, we'd completely lost touch. Hard to keep a long-distance relationship going, even as an adult, Patrice nodded. With all the temptations of first year at university, it's probably hopeless. I remember those days. She raised her apple martini, and Brooke did the same with her gin fizz. Life's a bitch, she said, staring hard at the bubbles. In her mind was a page of calculus homework, the margins embroidered with scribbled variations of her name entwined with Dylan's. Brooke Knox and Brooke Chappelle Knox. And then we moved to a week later at Draconis Space Ventures in California. After some brief speeches from the catwalk, the Secretary General and the Draconis founder and CEO Dean Pershing descended to floor level where they were surrounded by microphones and cameras. The SG stepped toward Dylan Knox. Brooke realized she was holding her breath and tried to calm herself while Pershing introduced Dylan to the crowd. At Brooke's arrival earlier in the afternoon, Dylan's face had shown no flicker of recognition, even from the week before. Yet she'd foolishly blurted to the Secretary General that she and Dylan had gone to school together. Idiot. I'm most impressed with the Solaria project, Mr. Knox. Thank you very kindly, Your Excellency. Your interest in our work is very gratifying. I confess that before today, I had thought microwave transmission of the solar energy gathered in space would be a more efficient method of transferring that energy to the surface. But your laser array may make a convert out of me. Dylan gave an awkward nod. Most kind. Although you must admit that there will be some who will feel concerned to see a militaristic nation such as the United States in control of space-based devices producing a potent beam of energy. Brooke gasped. Why would the Secretary General say something so inflammatory? Was he trying to gain points with the Russians or Chinese? Or was it some kind of oblique attempt to put Brooke back in her place? Dylan turned to his boss with a look of confusion. Mr. Pershing and I have done our best to explain to Your Excellency that the laser will be no threat as a weapon. He forced a smile for the media. I'm sure this is your well-known sense of humor. Explanations to me alone mean little, Mr. Knox. I would hope that your company and your country will be willing to host visitors from other nations to inspect your equipment and reassure themselves. Even Pershing began to look agitated. Dylan crossed his arms over his chest. The Solaria project is not only peaceful by design, it's the forerunner of a technology that will end dependence on fossil fuels and do a whole lot more to bring peace to the world than the United Nations these days. Excuse me? The UN should be bringing the world together. It should be helping people to prepare for the worst effects of climate change and for the refugee crisis that lies ahead. Instead, it allows itself to be shackled by petty squabbles. And you personally act at the whim of whoever's likely to back you for re-election. You should be ashamed of yourself. The Secretary General stepped back as if he had been slapped, and a geyser of noise shot through the vast space as reporters hissed at cameramen, sound men snapped at reporters, bystanders exclaimed shock into whatever ear was nearest, and Raconis staff tried to restore order. Later, in excruciating replays of the event, Brooke heard Dylan call the SG a puppet and complain that in nearly a century, because of weak-willed figureheads, the UN had moved no closer to being the world government that it needed to be. As the Secretary General lamely protested the insults, Dean Pershing responded by physically pulling his mission manager away from the fray and stepping to the microphones himself. To his credit, he made a sincere and intelligent plea to those in the gathering to ignore the misunderstanding they'd witnessed and return their focus to the bright promise of the Solaria technology and the hope it represented for struggling people around the globe. Of course, his plea did no good whatsoever. Brooke could swear she saw drool on the chin of one of the news producers as he raced for his team's remote truck outside. And we'll leave it at that. And there's the cover.
Awesome. D posts, well done for the rating. So thank you for that,
Thank
Scott.
you very much, D.
And that's a great teaser. I can't wait to start digging into it. Now, a question actually from Rennie. Rennie asks, because you mentioned your other books, are they all standalone stories, or should we read the previous books in order to enjoy this one?
They're absolutely all standalones, Rennie. They, I don't write series. It seems that when indie authors are really successful, it's because they have series of books and they write one after another and bring them out within a few months of each other. And I just don't do that. I mean, I do love my characters. I generally think of a possible sequel if heaven help me that some big publisher says, hey, we want this. Can you have a sequel? But I don't write series. So the short answer is each one's individual. They do have some of the same world building, as in there are some things that happen in the history of this that might also appear in some of my other books, but that's not necessary. You don't need that to enjoy.
Is it like a Castle Rock sort of thing Stephen King just kind of puts in as a little Easter egg?
I do have some that are, this one's set in the present day, although there is a time element of future times. Right. There are some that are set farther into the future, and some of the history from that reflects back on this one. And so there's some other joint history in another book that I think I may be bringing out next. So, there's some of that. It
Interesting.
doesn't change, your enjoyment of the story at all.
Great. Well, Rennie says sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Another question popped up. This is from Colleen saying, speaking of characters, how do you decide on your main character? Is it a conscious choice or is it more intuitive?
Well, you know, you and I both love Robert J. Sawyer. Robert J. Sawyer is a great science fiction writer, probably the most successful one Canada has produced. And he often says you need to have a strong theme, and then you find a character who will help you illustrate that theme by generally being the opposite of it. One of the examples he gives is in the movie Planet of the Apes, because everybody kind of knows that. The astronaut Charlton Heston plays hates humanity, thinks humanity has done such terrible things, wars and everything. He's really cynical about humankind. He ends up on a planet where he ends up having to defend the human race. So it's that kind of thing.
Right.
Colleen, when you're picking the character, you generally decide where you're going to go with the story and who will best illustrate that story. And I always like to have a character that you like eventually. You don't always necessarily like them to begin with, or not necessarily much, because they often go through a character journey, right? Of enlightenment,
Well,
redemption.
yeah, you think about Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day was yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Or the
Yes.
day before, yeah. So yeah, that thing where he is not a likable character, but his growth brings him there.
That's right. That's right. And I had lots of people say when I wrote Dead Airy many years ago that the character there, Lee Garrett, was not all that likable. He wasn't, but he certainly became more sympathetic,
He
as the
did,
story went
yeah,
on. That was
because
the
we
whole
went
point of
through
the film.
everything with him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fantastic. Another comment, Matthew DePapa says, "Great beginning, Scott. Can't wait to get a copy and to dive in." Speaking of that, where can people get their hands on a copy of this book?
Well, the thing, it's available through all the major online retailers, and there you have the universal book link that's provided by Draft to Digital Books to Read, which are linked partner companies there. And so, if you actually use that online, it will take you to a page that lists all of the major retailers' links. So you click on whichever one is your favorite. That you always buy your books from Kobo or Google Play or Apple or whatever. Click on it; it will take you to that book in their store. So that is a very, very simple, easy way to do it. I love those universal book links, and I have put them in every kind of press release and all of that. You can find out a whole lot more about the book at my website, scottoverton.ca. And I even have a bookstore there where you can buy ebook copies of the book and all of my other books. The only thing is that it's a little less convenient. You have to download it from the site and then manually load it into your e-reader, whatever it might be. Now, as far as print books, because lots of people love print books, it is available to order from Amazon.com or .ca or whatever. It is available to order through Barnes & Noble as a print copy and some other retailers. I'm working on Chapters. They have to manually enter it into their system, and I've requested that they do that, and they will do that. But I don't tend to print the books myself and then supply them to a store like Chapters Indigo, because then their discounts are big and we lose money. Authors lose money that way. Whereas if they actually get it from our printer, our supplier, our distributor, then we can all make some money from it. So that will be coming within the next week or two. I will certainly post on social media when the book is available through Chapters Indigo, because a lot of Canadians shop that way. Locally, I'll also try to get some into some stores in Sudbury if I can. I have sold at the Sudbury Market. It's kind of, a quiet time in the winter and with the pandemic, so I haven't been there, but we'll look at being there in the future and have copies of that book too.
As it starts to maybe warm up a little bit.
Well, that doesn't hurt, but the market is indoor during the winter at Science North, which is a great place for it. And I was doing that before Christmas, and we had great response from people buying books from local authors for Christmas gifts. It was wonderful.
Oh yeah, it always makes a great gift to get a signed copy of a book. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Scott, thank you so much, and I want to say thank you so much as well to all of the amazing folks who are watching online from YouTube and Facebook and
We
all
still have
different
to give
places.
away some books.
You're going to give away some books. What?
Yeah, we're going to give. Well, first of all, I want to mention two things. I promised everybody that they would be able to buy, if they attended tonight's launch, they would be able to buy the book at a great discount. Well, we have a code, and I hope you've got that code ready to
I
go.
don't have the code handy. Are you going to be able to read it and I can type it in, or I could do something like people could email you and they could get the code?
Yes, they can certainly do that. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's a Google Play code for 50% off. So it's a 50% discount on the ebook via Google Play. So we'll do that, and I can send that to them. But I also want to have 3 winners, if we can pick 3 winners from our people attending tonight. Some that will win an ebook, and one that will win an autographed print copy of the book. And they'll have to again contact me, and I will get the address information from them personally that way, and I can mail it out to them. That will be a little while because everything's delayed right now with
Right.
shipments, right? And my books, my actual physical copies of the books are delayed. So it will take another week or 2 before I get them, and then I can mail them out.
So
And
I'm going to ask live viewers right now, comment live me something in the next whatever. I'm going to just put everyone's names in a little spreadsheet with a random number generator
okay.
quickly, and I'll come up with a number. Does that sound good? I'll pull three numbers that'll represent 3 names. Does that make sense, Scott?
Yeah, that's fine. Sure. And we'll give a couple of ebooks and 1 print copy. The last one can be a print copy.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So if you guys just go ahead and drop those names in the comments, I'm going to get a little spreadsheet open. I'm going to start copying them over, and I'll do a little bit of that work in the background while Scott juggles and entertains you.
Well, I entertain. Well, I was trying to think of some other easier way to get that code up, but we don't have a chat box here that we could do.
If there is a chat, if you actually click over in the bottom left, the chat, you can type it in there, and then I can copy it and post it into the notes. And I couldn't find it, and I forgot to ask you about it.
Bottom left chat.
All right. So as people are putting their names in, I'm
right,
just writing them down.
Yeah. Well, it seems like, oh, you're so disorganized. Well, I thought you were doing some things, and you thought I was doing some things, and
I couldn't find where you sent them to me, and then I forgot to ask you when we went live.
Yeah, and now it's hiding on me too. I will get it. I will get it out as far as the codes go. Oh, there we go.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool. Yeah, and then you drop that in the chat, and so cool. I see. We've got 1, 2. We've got 4 people. So my God, there's a really good chance of 3 of those 4 people getting a prize. So,
yeah, now that
Scott just got it in the private chat. Thank you. So there's the code, and so this is for 50% off the book at Google Play, right?
Right, which is what I'm writing.
So
a little clearer now. There we go.
And I'm just going to add that, and I'll pop that up at the. Whoops! I'll pop them up at the bottom. I think if I got that code correct. Of course, my mouse froze. It happens only during live broadcast.
Live broadcast.
Oh, and then you typed the same thing I just typed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll leave that up while I'm checking for more comments. And I'm just going to give you guys 1 more minute to get your names in.
All right. Now, I mean, this is a case where I don't want to tell people that it's romance like a romance novel. It's a science fiction story with a strong love story element of it, and a universal love theme for Valentine's Day and everything like that, for sure. And, it's not very technical. It's very accessible, human kind of story. In fact, I had to kind of go in and add some science fiction elements of it so that people reading it would know it was a science fiction novel. When I first did my first draft of it, I thought, wow, this reads like a romance book. I better make it a little bit more science fiction.
Well, that's but love is universal, right? It transcends genre in many ways.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so countdown from 5. I'm actually going to bring up a little counter. I'll just because it's more fun to bring up a counter to say countdown from 10 to get your names in for that the prize. Let me find my countdown. Where'd the countdown go? There we go. Oh, isn't technology fun?
I should
Rennie
mention,
says nothing wrong with romance. That is
no,
right.
oh, absolutely not. It's only the structure of a romance novel that readers of romances expect, and I don't want them to come to this thinking that that's what they're going to get, because they
Okay,
probably
fair
won't,
enough. All
and I
right,
don't want
so
them to be disappointed.
are you going to do a drum roll while I draw for the first number?
Oh, okay. Am I going to really do a drum roll?
You
Everybody's
can
going
just
to think, what is this crazy?
All right, so the first was number 2, and the person's name beside number 2 is Colleen. So Colleen has won the first prize.
All right, Colleen.
All right, and I'll put and I think Colleen's going to email Scott at scottoverton.ca.
You do that,
All
and
right,
you'll
and
have an
then
ebook copy.
second number is number 1, which is Rennie.
Oh, great. Rennie is also an author.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah,
Got Scott's
good writer.
email address. And then the third prize is number 4, and that goes to Lisa.
A print copy, autographed print copy when I can get it to you, Lisa.
Yeah. Colleen's excited as well. So congratulations to everyone. And I'll pop up Scott's email address, scott at scottoverton.ca. So you can reach out to Scott and he can see how you want it signed. And then Scott's going to send you the other folks the ebook. I probably direct a link for that in the email.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can either do it either. I can either send them a coupon for Google Play or send them.
Oh yeah, because you have 100% off coupon, and in that way they can read it. So there is a free app for Google Play on iOS, Android, iPhone, or on Google devices, like all the other ones that aren't Apple, basically.
Yeah, we'll just find out whichever way they want it. I can send it to them, or
Cool.
directly by email. It's easy enough.
And Lisa's pretty thrilled to have won a signed copy. Very exciting. Cool.
Oh,
So
that's great, and I'll get that to you as soon as I can, Lisa, but we can be in touch.
Awesome. And Scott, what's coming up next? What do you got? What's in the pipeline that you're working on now?
Well, I'm working on one thing that I'm beginning, and it's very early stages, but I'm kind of thinking it in terms of Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad, but in deep space. I don't very often go into deep space at all. As I said, I usually write very present day or near future stuff, but
Please
that probably won't be the next thing I put.
But please tell me there's going to be a scene at the very opening where he's looking out the window into space and he says, "This too has been one of the darkest places in the universe."
I'm not guaranteeing that, Mark. I'm not guaranteeing
that.
But some people would know the novel and some people would know Apocalypse, whatever. But anyway, It may not end up like that. That's just a work in progress. The next one I bring out will be one that I've already written, but I haven't decided. I'm kind of choosing it between two, which way I'll go. And then I'll work with my editor and my cover artist, and we'll bring it out in another 6 months, 8 months, sometime like that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks again, Scott, and thanks everyone for participating, having a good time tonight. We're gonna close out with that trailer that you saw at the beginning. So thanks, and have a wonderful night.
Thanks, and check out my website to find out a whole lot more about the dispossession of Dylan Knox. Everything is there.